do so. It will be going away Sunday, and whatever is in there is going into file 13. So again, make sure that you pick up your cards tonight. If somebody's not here, encourage them to get those cards on Sunday because again, it will be going away this coming Sunday. That would be Sunday after services. Also, the kickoff dinner is January, I almost said April, but January 11th. Make sure that you make your plans to attend that. It will be a catered event, so we do want a head count so that we can get as close of an approximation as possible to those that are attending without a bunch of leftovers. So again, please make sure that you sign the sign-up sheet that is in the hallway over on the bulletin board. And then lastly, if you are able to help on Thursday evenings at 7 o'clock with our Spanish service, we're still needing individuals to sign up and to help with that. We need caregivers for individuals to take care of little ones while the service is going on, or if you are available to open and close the building, we would also need some folks to help out in that regard as well. So if you have time to devote, maybe an hour, hour and a half on Thursday evenings at 7, it would be a huge encouragement for those that are participating in that. At this time, I'll turn it over to Matt, who will be leading us in our singing.
You will need your songbooks this evening. The first song tonight will be 458, Rock of Ages, 458. We'll sing the first and the third verse. Rock of Ages, stand for me, let me hide myself in thee, let the water and the blood from the riven side which flow be a sin. Our next hymn will be 564. 564, Burdens Are Lifted at Calvary. And at this time, if you would like to mark the song of invitation, it is going to be 576. The song of invitation will be 576. There's a fountain free. We'll sing the first and third verse of Burdens Are Lifted at Calvary, 564. Days are filled with sorrow and care, hours are lonely and drear. Burdens are lifted at Calvary. Jesus is very near. Burdens are lifted at Calvary. Calvary.
I'm going to do one of the things, and I'm going to violate a public speaking principle right now. They say you're never supposed to start off with an apology. But I'm going to start off with an apology. In case you never heard that, as a public speaker, you're never supposed to start with an apology. But the apology is that you may have heard some of this before. The last time I spoke on the Wednesday night Devo was the last Wednesday night of a year ago, so 23, which would have been a year ago. So since I'm speaking the first Wednesday night of the new year, it's the same time of year, and the same thoughts go through my mind at this time of year. So the things that influenced my talk a year ago, so well, those things are still very much in my mind this time of year. So I thought I would share them again, and I did get some good comments from the last time I shared some of this. But this is the time of the year for reflection and preparation as we've ended one year and get on with the new. And sometimes we look back at the year, especially the year that passed, and we think of the good and the bad, the good, the bad, the ugly, as the saying goes. It really causes me to think, a lot of times we look back, we probably look back on some good things. Here are some highlights of 2024. But there are also some lowlights. There's some disappointments. There are some things that didn't go the way you wanted them to. Some people that disappointed you. Some occasions or events that disappointed you. And that really causes me to think, that everyone has different temptations. There are different things that tempt people to be unfaithful to God. And what tempts you may be different than what tempts me, that what tempts somebody else. Everybody has their own temptations. But there is one temptation that I think is common to everyone. I've never met anyone that doesn't have this temptation. And that is the discouragement. To the temptation to be less faithful because you're discouraged. Specifically getting tired or disappointed and thinking, you know what, it's just not worth it. You do something and it doesn't go right, or you do something, somebody disappoints you, or somebody does this, or you did something and you just get disappointed and you wonder, it's not worth it. I'm not doing this anymore. I don't think there is a teacher in here. I don't think there's an elder in here. I don't think there's a deacon in here. I don't think there's a preacher in here. Anyone that does anything related to this congregation, the nursery, the cleaning, the baskets of blessing, any of the activities that would go on, every one of us has become discouraged at times and you think, you know what, it's just not worth it. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm trying to help, I'm trying to do good things, yet I get discouraged and disappointed with situations, with people, with outcomes. And so that temptation to say, it's not worth it, I'm just done. And so that is something I think every one of us, probably sometime in 2024 even, just within the last year, is like, all right, that's enough. I've had it. I've tried. I'm not doing it anymore. And I have to confess as an elder sometimes, like, it would be easier if I just didn't care. If it would be easier to just not care, and then life would be simpler. But the Bible has some things to say about that. Specifically, I want to look at Galatians, verses in Galatians and in 2 Thessalonians. Galatians chapter 6, begin verse 7. It says, "Do not be deceived, God is not mocked. For whatever one sows, that will he also reap. For the one who sows to his own flesh will from the flesh reap corruption, but the one who sows to the Spirit will from the Spirit reap eternal life." And then in verse 9 especially, "And let us not grow weary of doing good. For in due season we will reap if we do not give up. So then, as we have opportunity, let us do good to everyone, and especially to those who are the household of faith." Then in 2 Thessalonians chapter 3, beginning in verse 10. 2 Thessalonians 3, beginning in verse 10. "For even when we were with you, we would give you this command. If anyone is not willing to work, let him not eat. For we hear that some among you walk in idleness, not busy at work, but busybodies. Now such persons we command and encourage in the Lord Jesus Christ to do their work quietly and to earn their own living." In verse 13, As for you, brothers, do not grow weary in doing good. 2,000 years ago, Paul had to give encouragement to the Thessalonians, to the Galatians. I'm sure he said this to other people as well. Don't grow weary in doing good. And that advice, that encouragement wouldn't make sense if people always felt good, if people never got discouraged. That encouragement wouldn't make any sense. But he's telling them, don't get tired of doing good. Keep doing good, even when you don't feel like it. Something to consider in this vein. You know, you don't get disappointed or discouraged about something you don't care about. So I found out this. I'm sure this has been on your mind a lot. Some of you are probably really discouraged about the outcome of the famous Idaho Potato Bowl. You know, we're in football season. Anybody discouraged about the outcome of the Idaho Potato Bowl? Yeah. Well, in case you're worried, Northern Illinois beat Fresno State, so that may have been why you're discouraged. But why is nobody here discouraged about that? How many people care about the Northern Illinois and Fresno State game? Nobody does. We only get discouraged about things we care about. So it ought to be actually an encouragement to us when we get discouraged about things. We're trying to do good, we're trying to do things, and it doesn't go right, we get discouraged. That means you care. And that is a good thing. And that's something we always need to keep in mind. It is good to care. And when you care, there are going to be some times where situations or outcomes or people that don't go the way we want them to. So a danger in discouragement and disappointment is the temptation of thinking it would be easier to not care. And that's something we have to guard against. I wanted to close with something I read a number of years ago, and I think it's really valuable. It wasn't written about a Christian life specifically, but it definitely applies. And it's called The Paradoxical Commandments. I put on my glasses again for this. The Paradoxical Commandments. If you are kind, people may accuse you of selfish, ulterior motives. Be kind anyway. People are often unreasonable, illogical, and self-centered. Forgive them anyway. If you are successful, you will win some false friends and some true enemies. Succeed anyway. Honesty and frankness make you vulnerable. Be honest and frank anyway. What you spend years building, someone could destroy overnight. Build anyway. If you find serenity and happiness, others may be jealous. Be happy anyway. The good you do today, people will often forget tomorrow. Do good anyway. Give the world the best you have, and it may never be enough. Give the world the best you've got anyway. People that really need help, but may attack you if you do help them anyway. See, in the final analysis, it's not between you and your God. It is between you and your God. It was never between you and them anyway. So as we look back at 2024, we've all faced discouragement or disappointment at one point or another. Don't grow weary in doing good. Do not grow weary in well-doing. And as we go forward into 2025, every one of us will face discouragement and disappointment. It's not going to go perfect in 2025. But let us not grow weary in well-doing. Let's always keep our eyes focused and keep doing good anyway. If you have any needs this evening, if you'd like the prayers of the congregation in any way, I invite you to come as we stand and sing.
we go to God in prayer, we have one prayer request submitted tonight by Anna Tomlin. It says, David King, a longtime family friend, passed away this morning, and prayers for the family this time. Please bow. Heavenly Father, thank you for another beautiful day of your creation, and thank you that they're able to be here tonight and worship you. Thank you for the new year coming up and all the new opportunities that we have to serve you and serve others. Help us as we go throughout the rest of our week, and help us to shine our lights for you, and help us have a good Bible class and learn lots from your word. And most of all, thank you for your son Jesus dying on the cross for our sins. In Jesus' name pray. Amen.
I got quiet quick. It's good to see everyone tonight. Hope everybody is doing well this January 1st. And you've all had a great start to the new year. I know they say in golf you can't birdie them all if you don't birdie the first. Well, you can't have a good day every day this year if you don't have a good day on the first. So I hope your day is going well. Tonight we get to talk about, as we go through our study in Proverbs, something that is, I hopefully believe, relevant to every individual in here. If not, then we might need to have an intervention later on, because I think this affects every person in this room, okay? Every person in this congregation. Before we get started tonight, I want us to go ahead and go to our Father in a word of prayer. Dal, will you lead us in prayer this evening?
Father, we are so thankful for many things in this life, and many things, Father, we can look back on the past year and be thankful. Thankful, Father, for the growth of this congregation, for those that made the decision to become part of your family, Father, and all the great things that you've allowed us to do this past year. We pray, Father, as we look forward to another year, that we will always strive to do the right thing, that our steps we found in the steps of Jesus, and that we'll always strive to live by the truth. We're thankful, Father, for this opportunity we have to study your word tonight, to study words of wisdom. And we pray, Father, that those words of wisdom will find a place in our heart, and they can actually drive our lives going forward. We thank you, Father, so much for Jesus and his sacrifice. In his name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. How many of you like Friends? You should all be raising your hand, because that's why they're your friends, is because you like them, right? That's the point. There are people in our lives that are acquaintances that don't necessarily fall into this category. So tonight, as we move into what the Proverbs writer has to say, I want to preface it a little bit with what Jesus says about it in the New Testament before we jump into what the Proverbs writer has to say about friendship. And we'll talk about it in various we might say categories, okay, as the Proverbs have broken it down into certain categories with friendship. So first and foremost, there is this statement that goes around oftentimes: with friends like these, who needs enemies? What does that mean? They're not your friends, certainly. If these are the caliber of people that are around me, why do I need enemies, right? This reminds us of Job's friends, right? Okay, he said, miserable comforters are you all, right? You're not good at being a friend, and especially at comfort. You don't know what that means clearly. So again, there's some quotes that are out there about friendship. This is one of them, and I hope this doesn't pertain to those that we are closest to. What about this one? What does this mean? A friend to all is a friend to none.
Once again, it's sort of like the one with Proverbs 18:24 says, "Man that has too many friends is in trouble."
Okay, man that has too many friends is in trouble.
And if you're trying to be friendly to all, you're not really a true friend.
Why is that?
Oh, when I look at it, is you're trying to please everybody. You're never going to please everybody.
Okay, so there is the element maybe of people pleasing in this, okay, and trying to please everybody, and trying to please everyone, you can please no one. Richie?
I think of just being kind of like a superficial relationship because like a true friend goes really deep, and you just don't have enough time to go that deep with everybody.
That's the key right there. Yeah, the superficiality of it, right? It is a superficial relationship. And what we mean by that is it's surface level. Okay, it's not deep. It takes time to develop a relationship with someone. Okay, so a friend to all is a friend to none has within it that idea that this person gets to know everyone on a superficial level, but not anyone really deep. Then be slow to fall into friendship, but when you are in, continue firm and constant. What is this? Okay, don't be a fair weather friend. Certainly, the last part of that, don't be a fair weather friend. What about the first part?
Choose your friends wisely is how I would read it.
Yeah, absolutely. Be wise about who we select to be our friends. What does Paul tell us about those that are closest to us? Bad companionship does what? Corrupts good manners or morals. Yeah, depending on who you heard it from growing up, right? I'm sure we were all told that at some point, because the relationships that we build with other individuals affect or influence us for good or ill. We saw this in Proverbs 1. Don't go with these angry people. Don't go with these individuals that are pursuing wickedness. Why? Lest you learn their ways and you fall into the same kind of condemnation. All right, so I want us to look. I looked up some impacts, and this is really important before we jump in. I looked at the APA, the American Psychological Association, to see what the effects of friendship were on people's mental health. Would you believe that there are effects on your mental health based on your relationships with friends or lack thereof? Yeah, God made us social creatures with the intent that we live in communities and build relationships. So naturally, in the church, there's an expectation that we grow and build relationships there. We see all of the one another's of the New Testament. We have the encouragement to be united in that common love, those kinds of things. So again, there is an effect on individuals based on if they are in relationships with others, that is, strong friendships. There's a correlation to their mental health. A review of 38 studies found that adult friendships, especially high-quality ones that provide social support and companionship, significantly predict well-being and can protect against mental health issues such as depression and anxiety, and those benefits persist across the lifespan. By the way, all ages. Did you know that good friends actually decrease your blood pressure? Did you know that if you are walking up a hill, psychiatrists were doing some studies, if you're walking up a hill and that hill is steep, then the perception is it's less steep if you're walking up it with one of your friends. Interesting that companionship and the ability to mutually encourage and support one another affects the way we view the world. All right?
Because we're not thinking about ourselves all the time.
That's part of it, certainly.
It should be louder, really.
Well, but we also have someone to think about us.
Right.
Right? And that matters,
But
doesn't
God
it?
saw that from the beginning. He said it's not good for man to be alone.
That's exactly right. I was going there. Genesis, chapter 2? It's not good that man should be alone. I will make a helper suitable for him. Absolutely. So Gleisner and others, in their text Innovation and Aging, said that people with no friends or poor quality friendships are twice as likely to die prematurely, according to Holt Lundsted's meta-analysis of more than 308,000 people, a risk factor even greater than the effects of smoking 20 cigarettes per day. Let that hit you. Do friendships matter? Okay, even the Lone Ranger had who? Tonto, right? So he wasn't so lone. All right. The fact of the matter is relationships matter. All right, and we need to have friends, and good ones at that. But again, let that hit you. Twice as likely to die prematurely without good relationships, with no friends or poor quality friendships. What a terrible life. Continue reading. What are the risks of social isolation? On the other side of the coin, research has shown that loneliness among people who lack quality friendships romantic partnerships, or other relationships increases our risk for heart attack, stroke, and premature death, according to a longitudinal study of nearly 480,000 UK residents. A meta-analysis by Holt and Lundstedt estimates that loneliness increases the risk of early death as much as 26%. Keep reading. Those findings have prompted leading health organizations, including the American Heart Association and the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine, to warn the public against the dangers of isolation, particularly for older adults. Okay, continue reading. Last paragraph, I promise. Despite the risks, Americans are getting lonelier. In 2021, 12% of U.S. adults said they did not have any close friends, up from 3% in 1990. That decline began well before the COVID-19 pandemic, with companionship and social engagement among friends, family, and others decreasing steadily over the past 2 decades. What are we trying to say in all this?
Stay out of social media.
Okay, so we have one that says stay off social media. What's the point? If you want that information, it can be found here, the American Psychological Association. You can look that up, and several other studies on this. I wanted to put some of the most germane things out there. Friendship matters. Our relationships with one another matters, and building good relationships with one another matters, okay? It's not something that we can just dismiss out of hand. So what is a friend? Well, per Webster's, a friend is someone, a person who one knows and with whom one has a bond of mutual affection, okay? Just a desire to be around that person, a care, a mutual esteem for that person. We could even say a phileo, a love for that person. That is what technically the definition is of a friend. One attached to another by respect or affection. Acquaintance, one who's not hostile. By the way, acquaintance is not really in that same category. And then one who supports or favors something. In modern parlance, that's like, oh, well, they're a friend to dogs. All right, well, okay, great. That doesn't mean they're real friends. What does the Bible say, though? Jesus in John 15, talking to his disciples, says, greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. For those whom he loves and cares about, the mutual respect, okay, and love there. He says, you are my friends if you do whatsoever I command you. Henceforth I call you not servants, for the servant knows not what his Lord does. But I have called you friends, for all things that I have heard of my Father I have made known unto you. What does that say about friendship, by the way?
Well, since friendship is personal and is an extreme commitment in it, because it says, greater love hath no man than this, than to give his life for a friend.
Certainly, commitment, love, sacrifice for that relationship, okay? What else?
It's an expectation. I mean, it's I don't know if you call it a command, but how you are friends is a command, whatsoever I commanded you, but it's an expectation of us as Christians to have friends.
Yeah, absolutely. To have those that we love. And who would generally be our first, I don't want to break it down into tiers, but our first tier of friends would be who? The saints, one another, right? Brothers and sisters in Christ, should be. Those that we support, we encourage through life. Do we have friends that are outside the body? Certainly we do. Okay, do we have close relationships with them? Yes, we do. Do we want to encourage them to fidelity to God? Yes, we do. Okay, but again, the idea of that mutual relationship, that obligation to that person. Okay, look at what Jesus says. Why does he call them friends? There you go. They know what's going on. What don't we tell our friends? We'll talk about that in 2 weeks, right? Proverbs. There is a sense in which we share everything about us with our friends, right? And they know everything about us. Okay? Y'all, I've heard it said, and don't take me down to the police station, but you have the friend that will help you bury the body. Have you heard that statement? Right? Again, there's that idea of that knowledge there about everything that each one of you is doing and that close relationship that y'all have and that has been built up, right? So again, Jesus is talking about the distinction here between servant and master and friend based on knowledge, okay? And the revealed knowledge that Jesus gave them. That's why he calls them friends, is because he gave them knowledge, okay? So there's a certain relationship there that's different than the master-servant relationship. What does Proverbs have to say about friendship? Well, there's some general sentiments in the Proverbs about friendship. Okay, first and foremost, a man that hath friends must show himself friendly, and there is a friend that sticks closer than a brother. What does this mean?
Well, the first part of that is kind of interesting because if you read it out of the New American Standard version, it's saying that he who has multiple friends, has many friends, is destined to trouble or destruction. But I like the first part here that's in the New King James and the King James. That has a friend must show himself to be friendly. We can't expect, if we're going to have a friend, we got to be friendly to them. We got to be their friend also.
Yeah, so is friendship one way? Now, you can be a friend to everybody, but a friend to everyone is a friend to who? None, right. We already talked about that. So, again, we can be a friend, we can be kind, we can be good-natured and generous toward all, which we are, by the way, obliged to be. Okay, that should define our character toward others, toward God. But if we want friends, it's not a one-way street. There's got to be reciprocity, okay? Have y'all ever given up on a friendship because there wasn't reciprocity? You can shake your head. Yeah. Just don't point at them if they're in here. Yeah, that's happened. I got to commend my wife. She does a fantastic job in reaching out to people who did not want to talk to her and maintaining a relationship with someone who, at that moment, was shunning her, reaching out to her. But she persisted, and guess what? They're best of friends now. Why? Because of her diligence. Does that mean we give up on people? Not necessarily, okay? But if we want friends, we ourselves have to be what? Friendly. Do people always rub us the right way? No, and so what's the natural response when that occurs? Okay, shy away. Well, I'm going to do it back, right? They did this to me, so I'm just going to treat them this way. Because apparently that's how they want to be treated, right? Y'all ever heard those comments? I have. That's not what he's saying here. If we want to have friends, okay, those individuals that are popular, or at least that have a lot of friends, are very friendly, open. Now, does that mean that they're superficial? No, not always. Okay, so we need to be careful not to judge indiscriminately there about that. But then the second part, there is a friend that sticks closer than a brother. In your discussions, or at least as you go back through the Old Testament in your mind, who stands out in this regard? What? David and Jonathan. Okay, why was David Jonathan's friend? I mean, have you ever read the story of David and Saul? Why was he friends with Jonathan? And they were thick. I mean, they were best of friends, okay? Jonathan warned David of Saul's mood. So again, remember when he fired the arrow to warn him? Yeah, again, so you've got two guys who are super great friends whose dad, one of them, wants to kill the other one. But what does that mean for their friendship? Nothing? What?
It means a lot because you just find out that Jonathan's son, who becomes a cripple, David provides for him, and he eats from the king's table for the rest of his life.
Yeah, absolutely. So the generosity of David towards Jonathan's family after Jonathan passes, that extension to Mephibosheth, right, where he brings him to Jerusalem and lets him eat bread at the king's table continually, is a great story about the friendship. In fact, as it starts, he asks his court, is there any left of the house of Saul that he may show kindness to for Jonathan's sake? Again, super important part there because of the friendship there. So there is a friend that sticketh closer than a brother.
Don't you think that to some extent this verse actually is talking about different level of friendship? I mean, it's saying there is a friend. So there is a certain friend that could be your best friend.
Yeah.
And that indicates there's a level of friendship. You can have friends, but they may not all have the level of closeness that you may have with another friend.
100%. Yeah, Jonathan and David were different than David and David's mighty men. All right? Jonathan and David had a very, very strong, close friendship. And just like us today, how many of you, I know Tara says she has multiple best friends. I think that defeats the superlative there, but You have a best friend. You have somebody that you know who is, you can call and you haven't talked to for 10 years and you pick up and it's like you never put down the phone, right? Somebody who you are so close to and you know very, very well that you could call on for anything. That is a level of friendship. We might call it a tier 1 friend, right? And then we have other friends that we're close to, but not in that way. So yes, absolutely, there is a friend that stays closer than a brother. I think this is a statement of degrees. Okay, we can have friends. If we want friends, generally speaking, we must show ourselves friendly. And then there is a friend that sticks closer than a brother that is closer than blood relations. Okay, I love my brothers. I do, and would do anything for them, and they would do that for me. But am I as close in friendship to them as I am to some others? Not necessarily. Why? Well, because we don't see each other all the time. We have the same background and upbringing, but we don't have necessarily that kind of affection necessarily. So again,
well, another one that when I think about is a friend closer than a brother, I think about Christ.
mm-hmm.
I think that we can take this last part of this verse and realize we as Christians, we have Christ as a friend who is always there to support us no matter what.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it calls us to be that kind of friend.
Oh yeah, I do think that we need to be that kind of friend.
You know, people like Barnabas, he was that way to the new Saul, who was called Paul.
Mm-hmm.
He got him into the church and let everybody know this is a cool guy. And then when that same guy turned down one of his friends, what did he do? Stood up for him.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. When Paul and John Mark got after it, right? So, you're right. That brings up a good point. What if we were this close with everybody in the church? What would that look like?
The church.
Just the church?
We're supposed to.
Yeah,
The building would be full.
Huh?
The building would be full now.
Yeah. We'd be having to spend a lot of time with one another. Look at what Proverbs 27:14 says, though. He that blesseth his friend with a loud voice. When he says blesses his friend with a loud voice, is he talking in sarcasm there? Because look at the next line. Rising early in the morning, it shall be counted a curse to him. My children bless us in the morning with loud voices. What's he talking about? Imposing on your neighbor, right? And waking them up, being an annoyance to them. Okay, so is there a point at which we can go too far in the friendship? Yeah. Have you ever heard the statement, they've worn out their welcome? Okay, I think there's a Proverbs, and I didn't put it on here, I don't know why, but don't tarry too long or stay too long in thy friend's house, lest you grow weary unto him or become a burden to him. And he hate thee, I think is how it ends up. We can overdo it, all right, that's possible. All right, so again, what's the wisdom in this statement? In the friendship, be aware of social cues, okay? If they need their space, bow out. Recognize that too. Now, that friendship should be good enough for them to be able to say, hey, it's time for you to go home. It's 1 o'clock, right? The new year was an hour ago. So again, you can do that. But again, he that blesses his friend with a loud voice, that friend that is annoying to the individual in the morning, okay? We get the morning, the idea of someone who's looking for rest or solace, and they're waking them. Rising early in the morning, it shall be counted a curse to him. So he's not going to be the best friend. Iron sharpeneth iron, so a man sharpeneth the countenance of his friend. What is this a reference to?
We make each other better.
Yeah. So friendships can help both in the relationship become wiser. All right? If it's taken the right way. Okay, there's another one on here we'll get to in just a minute, right? About the criticisms or the corrections of a friend. But the idea that two individuals who are bouncing back and forth ideas or talking, okay, can sharpen one another, can help each other. Have you ever asked a friend for help and said, hey, I don't know how to handle this situation? And you tell them what you think you're going to do, and they say, don't do that. And you say, why? This seems perfectly reasonable. and they say, no, 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 here are all the things that will go wrong if you do that. And then you think to yourself, oh, well, I'm glad that I talked to them. Again, that's wisdom in action, okay? In the multitude of counselors, there is safety, has that kind of idea there to it, but also the ability to argue back and forth in a congenial way. I have preacher friends, believe it or not, that I call and visit with from time to time, and I'll ask them questions, and we'll throw ideas back and forth. We'll talk about texts, we'll talk about Bible, and we'll talk about the ramifications of a position, or, you know, what does it mean here, and what are the implications for this other text if we take it to mean this. And we can spend 2 or 3 hours on the phone talking about that kind of stuff. I know Tara can get wore out with that sometimes, but it's good because it's helping me grow and it's helping him grow. And so there's a blessing in having that relationship there. So we ought to have that person that we can do that with. Faithful are the wounds of a friend, but the kisses of an enemy are deceitful. What does this mean?
Sometimes your friends can hurt you with words, but that's still better than someone who is deceitfully saying nice things to you, but doesn't really mean it.
Right, so think about this, and that's the right idea. You're going down the right path. The wounds of a friend would be typically correction, right? The idea of a friend correcting me and saying, you're out of line. Does that hurt? When they come to me and say, hey, you did this and this is wrong? Yeah, but what's the key part about it? It's faithful. Why are they correcting you in that sense? Because they care, like Mike talked about tonight. You know, people get discouraged because they care. Well, your friends correct you because they care about you. That's what my parents always told us growing up, right? They correct because they care. What about those who flatter? What does flattery do?
That means they care about themselves.
That's exactly right. The kisses of an enemy. So the idea of that person who is, you know, flattering with their words, who is overly nice and kind, are what? They're doing those things to hide the deceit in their character.
They usually want something.
And they usually want something, right?
What Jesus said to Judas.
Yeah, betrayest thou the Son of Man with a kiss?
Yeah, Judas
Right.
make a kid.
Absolutely. I didn't think about that, but that's absolutely true. So, yeah, so that's the idea of that one. Here's some more. A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity. I have brothers, that is true. I fight with my brothers, I love my brothers. But again, you know, a friend loves at all times. It doesn't seem to be as strong a fight sometimes maybe with friends as there are with family members. The whole point is, those that are closest to you in blood are not always the ones that you will spend the most time with and care for the most. Now, does it mean you don't care for your family? No, that's not what he's talking about. Again, so make no friendship with an angry man. With a furious man thou shalt not go, lest thou learn his ways and get a snare to thy soul. What does this say about friendship? What's that?
I said pick wisely.
Choose wisely. Yeah, like Richie said, we need to be wise in the way we pick our friends. Because why? We pick up the traits of those that we associate with. And the Proverbs writer is encouraging us not to go with an angry person.
You know, Chance, you touched on it earlier when you talked about evil companion corrupts good morals or good values. Think about the situation at the time. Here, these people were corrupting you, getting you not to believe in the resurrection of Christ. If you don't believe in that, you don't believe in the resurrection of the faithful. What purpose is there to live the Christian life? Don't hang around that kind of people that would get you to give up on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's Paul in 1 Corinthians 15. If in this life only we have hope in Christ, we are of all men the most miserable or most to be pitied. You're absolutely right. And so if they, you know, went the way of others and didn't believe in the resurrection, yeah, then there's kind of no point in Christianity. So as Paul is saying there, yeah. And the idea, generally speaking, is true. Those that we associate with, we tend to mimic and copy, right? So again, that's the concern about having, you know, friends that are not so shiny. Ointment and perfume rejoice the heart. So does the sweetness of a man's friend by hearty counsel. Okay, so here's the idea of someone who is talking with their friend and encouraging them. He says, your own friend and thy father's friend forsake not. Why? your father's friend, those that are older than you that provide wise counsel, neither that go into thy brother's house in the day of thy calamity, for better is a neighbor that is near than a brother far off. What does this mean?
And the last part is, proximity matters. I mean, well intentions, but not being there aren't good. That's that last part.
Yeah. So, don't go into thy neighbor's house. What is he talking about?
You can go to that brother's house.
Well, he says thy neighbor, or thy brother's house in the day of thy calamity. Yeah, for it's better a neighbor's. So basically, don't forsake your friends and go to family for help when you have built friendships close to you, right? So the point is, as Mike said, proximity. But what happens if we alienate our neighbors? Now, we talked about that, I think, last week or 2 weeks ago about not getting in a fight with your neighbor and having a problem with an individual who's right next door. That's the same sentiment in the last part here. And then, again, there's goodness in the counsel of those that are close to us. Well, what does the Proverbs writer say about money and friends? Do you think he says anything about it? You're like, you got a category for it, so probably. Yeah. So in Proverbs 6, 1 through 5, he says, my son, if you are surety for thy friend. What is surety for thy friend? Cosigner on debt, yes. If you have stricken thy hand with a stranger, okay, if you are bound to a certain debt, you are snared with the words of your mouth. You're stuck. You are taken with the words of thy mouth. Do this now, my son, and deliver thyself when you are come into the hand of thy friend. Okay, notice who he says, thy hand of your friend. Go, humble yourself, and make sure thy friend. Give not sleep to thine eyes, nor slumber to thine eyelids. Deliver thyself as a roe from the hand of the hunter, and as a bird from the hand of the fowler. Why is he saying this? What's involved in this friendship?
They might just blow you off and not pay the debt.
Okay, they might blow you off and not pay the tab. Are they your friend?
No,
Are you sure? Because he says friend.
they're a kid friend.
So, are you sure?
Yeah.
Because he says, do what? Deliver thyself when you are come into the hand of who? What happens to a relationship when money is involved?
Get stressed.
It gets stressed. Why? Because there's a whole lot of feeling about money, all right? Even though money is a tool, like a hammer or a drill or something else in the shop, money's just a tool. There's a lot of emotion toward dollars, okay? So what happens to a relationship when someone lends them money? Well, it changes the dynamic of that relationship, and now you have master-servant. You have lender-borrower, okay? You don't have friend-to-friend anymore. It has changed it drastically. So what is he saying to do?
Stay free.
Pay the money back. Get out of the debt.
You're the surety. You're the one that co-signed.
Yeah, if you've stricken thy hand with a stranger, you're snared with the words of your mouth. Yeah, of who?
But
Deliver
you're co-signing
yourself.
for him, aren't you?
What's that?
You're the one co-signing for him, and that the relationship's stressed if you don't stay his friend.
See, the New American Standard says, have given a pledge for a stranger.
Okay.
It doesn't say friend.
So in the verse 3, do this now, my son, and deliver yourself when you are come into the hand of your friend.
Hand of your neighbor.
The hand of your neighbor?
Uh-huh.
Excellent. Versional issues. Okay. That's a problem. So then,
No, you've got friend in the first part of that sentence, then you have stranger in the second part.
oh, okay, gotcha. So if you've signed or co-signed for a loan for someone, what does he say to do? Deliver yourself. Get out of that relationship, that situation with the money, okay? But I will say that the other does hold true, okay? If we've gone into debt, what does that do, especially to a relationship or a friendship? It can strain the relationship, okay? Again, you've changed the dynamic of that relationship now. And that's why he's saying, deliver yourself as a roe from the hand of the hunter. Is it good to be in debt according to this proverb? No, it's not.
Along with another Proverbs.
Along with many others, yes. So money affects relationships and can affect them in a negative way. Now, it does beg the question, why would you co-sign or be surety in debt for your friend? Well, you might say, well, I want to do good for them, or this, they need this. Well, let's figure out a different way to do it, right? You don't have to do that. So then we get, a man void of understanding strikes hands and becomes surety in the presence of his friend.
Chance?
Yes.
Back to that, is it kind of like get yourself out of that situation?
For sure, yeah.
Get yourself out of that promise?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that kind of, that's how I've always taken it. Get yourself out of that, don't give sleep to your eyes, don't slumber,
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And we'll talk about that one. Yeah, that comes next, doesn't it, in that same passage?
Is it in here? I don't know. A borrower or a lender be? Where is that in here?
Borrower and a lender?
That's
There is a passage.
Shakespeare.
Yes, there is a text that says the borrower is slave to the lender. I'll let y'all, if y'all want to find that right quick. But again, a man void of understanding strikes hands and becomes surety in the presence of his friend. What does that mean? So again,
I think both of these are saying that no matter the friendship you have, you should not become that cosigner. You should not put yourself in between your friend and your friend's lender.
yeah,
The other verse said you're stuck by your own words.
Yeah.
Once you have inserted yourself in between the friend and the lender, you're now party to that.
yeah. Well, you're the one that's on the hook.
Better to just stay back and hold your friend's hand, but don't insert yourself in the middle of it.
Yes, because that would be problematic at least, right? And could be detrimental to the friendship in the long term as well.
I
yeah.
think a lot of what we've been discussing tonight falls, to me it seems, under communication with your friend.
Mm-hmm.
If you're having a problem with your friend, whatever it may be, I think you're just as responsible, even if the other person's acting like he shouldn't be or she shouldn't be, to bring it up to them in a way that doesn't put them in a defensive mode.
Mm-hmm.
To open that communication up and say, look, it looks like you might have a problem here, regardless of what it is.
Yeah.
And if you don't care enough about that friend to even say that, then you're really not a friend.
Yeah.
That's just the way I look at it,
Mm-hmm.
with the friendship. And I've had some that's been difficult. But if you sit down and you talk, and you understand what they're doing, whether even if it's bad, I think it's your responsibility as well as his to listen, but to communicate the problem with them.
Yeah.
Before it gets out of control.
For sure. If you value the friendship, that's a good point, Mark. Communication is always key to resolution, right? Especially when there's conflict involved, when there's issues involved. Maybe the person is unaware and they need their attention brought to an issue before it blows up or gets out of hand. Certainly communication is a vital part of the relationship. And without communication, that relationship cannot grow, right? Those friends cannot become better friends, okay?
Even if the one person is really out of line or doing something they shouldn't be, there's ways that you can approach that without making them defensive.
Yeah.
Before it gets out of hand.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think enough of that is done. I think
Yeah.
people just tend to get defensive and get angry and I don't need you,
Well, there are proper ways to speak to one another, aren't there?
Well, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's biblical guidance on that very thing. So you're absolutely right. So communication is certainly a big part of this and maybe mitigating some of these problems that might happen. The poor is hated even of his own neighbor, but the rich has many friends. Okay. In this tense, or in this text, what does he mean by friends?
Hangers on.
Hangers on. Yeah, does he mean like genuine, real friends? No, because multiple proverbs would indicate why they have the friends, right? It's because the money. They're not following the person, they're following the money and the perceived kickbacks that they might get by being close to this person who is wealthy. Okay, this is a typical proverb about individuals who despise the poor and love the rich and cling to the rich because of what the rich can give them. Again, The poor is hated even of his own neighbor. All right, so those that even live around them, they can't stand them. Wealth makes many friends, but the poor is separated from his neighbor. Again, the same idea, only in different words. Many will entreat the favor of the prince, and every man is a friend to him that gives gifts. Why? Hey, he's a great guy. He just gave me $1 million. Does that say anything about his character? No, it just means that he parted with $1 million. Why? Elon Musk did that in Pennsylvania to get people to vote.
Trying to buy friends.
What's that?
Trying to buy friends.
Yeah, trying to buy friends. You're right. Everyone's a friend to the person that's giving gifts. All the brethren of the poor do hate him. How much more do his friends go far from him? He pursues them with words, yet they are wanting to him. Note the degrees here. So everyone's friends to the rich, the person that gives gifts. Everyone has a false view toward this person and is a false friend, a hypocritical one. But the brethren of the poor, okay, those that are related to the poor, hate him. They despise their poorness. And even his friends abandon them. He pursues them with words, yet they are lacking to him, wanting to him. Might be a better way to render that. But again, so we get the idea that the poor, those that don't have anything to offer, are despised.
We have a higher call. We
100%.
look at Christ, and that's who is he friends to?
Yes.
Who is he called to serve?
Well, look at the beggars. What did Jesus do for the beggar on the road to Jericho? We talked about him Sunday.
When he said, if you do good to people, they can give you stuff back, you're not doing anything. You need to help those who can't do anything.
That's exactly right. And in James chapter 2, what does he tell the brethren there? Be not what? Respecters of persons, right? Having evil thoughts, okay? For if there come in one among you who's clothed in, fine clothes and gold jewelry, and you say, come sit here in this seat, are you not become what? Judges with evil thoughts. But if there come in one among you who's poor, and you say, here, sit in this seat in the back, right? Sit here in this lesser seat or lower seat, you've become judges with evil thoughts. Again, so the idea is basing a person's value on what they have materially. All right? What does Jesus say about every individual's value? What does it profit a man if he gains the whole world and lose his own soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul, right? Again, the soul is drastically more valuable. Okay, each individual is drastically more valuable than the material goods of this world. So again, this idea is just showing what money does to relationships, okay, and how people view individuals who have money. A froward man sows strife, and a whisperer separateth chief of friends. So again, friendship being ruined by the things that we say or do, right? A whisperer is that person who's spreading secrets. I tell my kids often that secrets don't make friends, right? Secrets don't make friends. The best thing to do is not to hold secrets, not to keep secrets, and not to share secrets. He that covers a transgression seeks love, but he that repeats a matter separates very friends. And a man that hath friends must show himself friendly, and there is a friend that sticks closer than a brother. I know we talked about that one. There's a few more in here. Ultimately, this is what we're trying to be. Abraham was called the friend of God. Why? Because he believed God, and it was accounted unto him for righteousness. He did what God asked him to do. And I love that the Bible tells us that he was a friend of God. Again, going back to John 15, you are my friends if you continue in my word. So we can be the friend of God if we so choose to do that. I have questions and thoughts, but I guess we're out of time this evening. I appreciate your attention.